You're listening to a GWP weather update. It is Tuesday, March 10th, 2026, and today we're going to be looking at some of the weather going on around the country, but mainly our focus is going to be on the severe weather threat here across the state of Missouri. So first of all, we will start off by looking at just how much is going on right now. We've got an ice threat that's going to be developing tomorrow across Maine, so we're just going to go from east to west here. Then we've got another ice threat across Michigan. We've got ice storm warnings in effect where we could be looking at 4/10 of an inch of ice. We've got some heavy snow across Wisconsin and Michigan, possibly looking at upwards of a foot across those regions. We've got severe weather just to the south of that. So in the same state that we have winter alerts, we have severe alerts, literally in the same state across Wisconsin and Michigan there. So we've got severe thunderstorms ongoing across Illinois. We've got a really high tornado threat today across northern Illinois. We'll look at that momentarily. Severe thunderstorm watches. We've even got flood watches across upstate New York, where we could see some of that melting that could result in some flooding, snow melt I'm referring to there. Tornado watches across northern Missouri, including Kansas City. We've got ongoing tornado alerts in the state of Missouri to the north of us. And then we've got additional warnings across Kansas and Oklahoma. This is eventually going to build and it's going to move its way towards the southeast and it will eventually affect us later tonight. We've got tornado watches all in the yellow. So we have tornado watches all the way from the Texas-Mexico border all the way to southwestern Michigan and pretty much everywhere in between there. So that's where our tornado watches span from. Severe thunderstorm watches here across this kind of darkish pink color that we've got there. And then we've got that across Kansas as well. More tornado and severe thunderstorm warnings across Texas and Oklahoma. Then just to the west of that, we have the risk for fire. So we've got some strong gusty winds where we've got some of that drier air in place across the panhandle of Texas behind the cold front, as well as into New Mexico. So we've got those alerts as well. And then we've got, let's see, we've also got some high wind alerts across Wyoming and Montana and the Dakotas, as well as into Washington and Oregon. So we've got some ongoing concerns with that as well. And so we're talking about winds gusting upwards of 60 or maybe even 70 miles per hour. We've got a blizzard warning across the state of Washington where we're looking at several feet of snow over the next 36 to 48 hours in the Cascades. So the Cascades are under a blizzard warning. And then we've got heat advisories across Southern California. And then we've got a bunch of flooding ongoing across Hawaii. And then we even have a blizzard warning in the state of Alaska as well. So we have all sorts of things going on. We have snow, we have blizzards, we have ice storms, we have tornadoes, we have flooding, we've got strong winds, we've got heat advisories, we've got fire threats. You name it, it's probably on this map. We have just about every single type of weather alert going on across all 50 states at this point in time. And you'll notice that really the only area that's not dealing with severe weather of some variety would be here across the eastern portion of the US. But everywhere here across the plains, across the Pacific Northwest, and then across the Northeast and Alaska and Hawaii, we're dealing with this storm system, very powerful storm system, since it has left all of these alerts here as those severe alerts just keep popping up left and right with this severe threat that we have that's ongoing. It's hard to believe that we only have a few counties that separate our severe threat and our winter weather threat. And just to think that some of the areas that could see tornadoes today could be looking at snowfall by this weekend with temperatures in the teens. That's what we're looking at. That's the kind of rapid change that we're going to be dealing with here in the weather department. As far as severe weather alerts that we have, oh, and yes, of course, that was the National Weather Service's weather alerts across the country. And you'll notice they also had a statement talking about the severe weather in the upper Midwest, the blizzard conditions in the Cascades, and also some of that flooding and thunderstorms in Hawaii. And then, of course, there really wasn't enough room to also mention the ice storm that's going on across Michigan and the severe wind threat here across the northern Rockies. But those are, of course, some of our big stories that we're dealing with at this point in time. The one that's going to be affecting us over the next several hours is going to be the severe weather threat. You'll notice currently right now across the lower 48, we have 32 severe thunderstorm warnings and we have 5 tornado warnings. So all sorts of different alerts here. So we have an ongoing severe weather outbreak likely at this point in time. We've got severe thunderstorms across Texas here, this northern part of this line, west of Fort Worth and Dallas. We've got severe weather along the Red River Valley. We've got severe weather. Currently a very strong supercell in Oklahoma City. We're likely getting some big hail on the north side of the city, maybe even a little bit of a tornado. Radar indicated threat on that storm. We've got additional thunderstorms just starting to develop across northern Oklahoma and southern Kansas. This one looks like it's headed towards Wichita. Looks like that we could be looking at a wind threat, maybe even some hail in there as well. Across the state of Missouri, we do have an active tornado warning northeast of Kansas City within this complex of thunderstorms. Hail is going to be the main threat outside of that warned area for the tornado. And then we've got all sorts of thunderstorms. This is really where the majority of our warnings are at this point in time across eastern Iowa, northern Illinois. We've got southern Wisconsin, even a little bit, or at least getting close to southern Wisconsin. We do have one tornado warning across northwestern Indiana, and then western Michigan, even in the Grand Rapids area, we're seeing some of those strong thunderstorms here. Chicago is going to be at risk, but really this whole area of Illinois, that's where we're going to have the highest tornado risk for today. And so we'll go ahead and we'll look at that here. This is the Storm Prediction Center, the SPC's day one severe weather outlook. And you'll notice that we've got that moderate risk for severe weather today across northern Illinois and as well as into northwestern Indiana. So that's a 4 out of 5 on that severe weather scale. So certainly a little bit on the higher end, you could say. Not that highest risk, but just slightly below it. We've got the elevated risk across Texas. This is mainly for the hail. We've already had reports of hail bigger than softball size hail, bigger than softball size hail. So we've had several reports of 2 to 3 to 4 inch hail. That's going to really cause some significant damage. And then we have a slight risk here across our area in Missouri, and that's going to be that overnight threat. And then again, that highest risk as we outlined across Illinois and Indiana, the highest risk for today being that 4 out of 5 moderate risk across this region. And that is because of the tornado threat. We're in that 15% category across northern Illinois and into Indiana. Once you go north of the Chicago metro area, that's where we get into some of that colder air. So there's a really sharp cutoff, as you'll notice, when it comes to that tornado threat. We're in the 5% category across Missouri, Oklahoma, into Texas. This means that our tornado risk is slightly lower than it was on Friday, but still, certainly, there's a risk at all. So that means that we could be looking at some isolated tornadoes, probably of the weaker variety, but across Illinois, that's where we could be looking at some long track tornadoes that could be EF3 or higher. And just to put this in perspective, when we start talking about EF3 winds, we're talking about winds in tornadoes of upwards to a 160 miles per hour. 160 mile per hour winds can be expected when you get those sort of tornadoes. And so again, that's what we're going to be looking at the risk for across Illinois. What about the risk for strong winds? So that's what we're looking at here. The wind threat is mainly going to be across Texas and Oklahoma. You'll notice these little dash marks that indicate 75 mile per hour winds or greater are going to be possible. We've already had a few wind gusts of around 70 miles per hour. We have not seen any hurricane force winds reported from tornadic storms as of this point in time. But that higher risk across Texas and Oklahoma, here in Missouri, we have that threat. But our big threat across the state of Missouri is going to be the hail. We are under that hatched region for 2-inch or greater hail. And you'll notice that we have these lines right here across western Texas. That's a little bit higher on that risk. That's where we have the risk of seeing 3-inch hail. And again, we've already had that verified out of a few locations in Texas where we've even picked up upwards of 4.5 inches in diameter when it comes to the hail. 2-inch or greater hail is going to be possible across the state of Missouri with a higher risk as you go into Illinois and Indiana, but still certainly we're in that 15% category here across the state of Missouri. And also, I don't think I've explained this in previous videos, but this percentage is based on the likelihood of seeing it within your area. So we could say like within about 30 miles, I believe is the exact mileage that they use here. So the Storm Prediction Center in this yellow area here in Missouri is basically saying that we have a 15% chance of seeing large hail, quarter size or greater, within a 30-mile radius of wherever your location is. And so that's basically what this is saying here. And so again, we've already had some areas, of course, that have verified that that is true. And then you're looking at the possibility when you get into this hatched region where you got these lines right here. That's where we're talking about the possibility of 3-inch or greater hail. And so the good news is here in Missouri, we're not in that risk, but we could be looking at lime size hail. But again, you start getting up to baseball size hail when you're in this other region over here, or around teacup size hail as well. So baseball to teacup, kind of in that range is where you start getting when you're in this region over here. So we're also looking at the risk for flooding. The Weather Prediction Center has outlined us in that marginal risk for flooding across the state of Missouri. Of course, the higher risk is going to be across those areas that have the higher risk for some of those strong storms. And the threat is not completely over after today. We also have the slight risk further to our east as we go into tomorrow. So if you're going to be traveling across eastern Texas, Louisiana, Arkansas, Mississippi, Alabama, we've got Tennessee, Kentucky, Illinois, Ohio, West Virginia, Indiana, Pennsylvania, Maryland, Virginia, as Delaware, New Jersey. So just several different states as we go into tomorrow. So again, really large areas that are going to be at risk for severe weather for today and tomorrow. So just a large area of coverage when it comes to that severe weather. And then again, as we mentioned, we're dealing with other types of severe weather elsewhere. We've got that snow across Washington and Oregon. We've got the heat here across California, where we've got those heat advisories. We've got some really strong winds across this region. This is not related to any thunderstorms. These are just your general winds. Of course, you notice it was a little bit windy here in the state of Missouri as well, but it's going to be even worse across this region. Just multiply what you saw here in Missouri by about times three, two or three. That's what you're going to see across this region. So just imagine what you saw today and just imagine it two or three times worse. That's what we're going to be experiencing over the next 24 hours across that region. And then again, as we mentioned, we've got that ice threat further to the north, especially into the Michigan area. And then we've even got the potential for some ice, mainly as we go into tomorrow across upper New England here, including Vermont, New Hampshire, and Maine. So just all sorts of hazards that we're going to be dealing with out of this storm system here. And it's not going to stop here with this storm system. We are going to be dealing with a couple of other systems as we go into Thursday and Friday. This one is going to be staying to our north, so it's not really going to affect us here. Oh, and actually, before we go on, the one other thing that I forgot to mention with this storm system is tomorrow morning, we're going to have a cold front that's going to move through, very similar to what we had on Friday. This is very typical during an early spring storm during the month of March. We're going to have a cold front that's going to move through. And so temperatures are going to start in the 50s and 60s during the morning hours on Wednesday, and they're actually going to drop into the 40s as we go into the afternoon. So make sure that maybe you don't need your coat in the morning tomorrow, but you're definitely going to need it by the evening because those temperatures are going to drop off. And then if you did remove your the cover from your faucets outside, you'll need to make sure to cover those back up because we are looking at below freezing temperatures potentially tomorrow night, and definitely by this weekend we're going to be looking at temperatures below freezing, possibly well below freezing, maybe to the point where you need to drip your faucets. But of course we'll get into that as we get a little bit closer. And then I guess that kind of reminds me of the other thing. So again, temperatures are going to drop off quite a bit. So that is something that you need to be prepared for. If you've done some early gardening, just understand that even though it's been in the 80s the last couple of days, those plants could be at risk tomorrow night. So you'll want to make sure to bring them inside a greenhouse or inside a shed or something in order to make sure that those survive the upcoming colder days that are going to be ahead behind this cold front. Then it's going to warm up a little bit as we go into Thursday and Friday, and then as well as into Saturday. And then a much stronger cold front is going to move in Sunday into Monday. Temperatures and the high temperatures, we'll be looking at 30s and 40s, maybe low 50s, but overnight temperatures in the teens and the 20s. So again, a very big drop off is expected. So that is something that we need to be prepared for. And that's going to be with this storm system right here. We have to watch Sunday. We could be looking at some rain. It doesn't look like we're going to have a whole lot of severe weather with that. Something I am concerned about is maybe even some blizzard conditions across Iowa and Wisconsin, just depending on how strong the winds are out of the storm system. Maybe even a little bit of snow here across northern Missouri as we go into Sunday. So that's something else that we're going to have to watch as well. So all sorts of things happening right now when it comes to the weather, and a lot more things yet to come as we go forward in time. All right, that is it for now. Again, stay safe with tonight's severe storm threat. Oh, and I guess one other thing is the timing on that threat here across the state of Missouri. It appears that just across our region, that threat is going to begin after about 8:30 or 9 o'clock, so about an hour from now, and it's going to continue through about midnight or 1 a.m. We will likely have thunderstorms past that time, but likely the severe weather threat will be mostly over by about midnight or 1 a.m. So especially between 8:30 and midnight, you want to have a way to get those severe weather alerts so that if you do need to take shelter, that you're able to do so. Again, this is not to scare anybody, but nighttime tornadoes are twice as deadly as daytime tornadoes. And it's because people are sleeping. So make sure you have a way to wear a phone or a radio or something of that effect, not the tornado sirens. You might not hear them if you're asleep. Those are intended for only when people are outside. So have a phone or a weather radio, NOAA weather radio, have those ready as you go into the overnight hours. Have them on so that they can alert you if you need to take shelter. So again, the worst threat when it comes to those tornadoes and wind and hail and everything, that's going to be between about 8:30 to about 1 a.m. After 1 a.m., we are not expecting a lot of severe weather, but thunderstorms and heavy amounts of rainfall could continue into the morning commute as we go into the morning hours, but those storms would likely not be severe. All right. Well, that is it for your GWP weather update. We'll continue to keep you updated. Again, stay safe as we go through the rest of this evening.